speak to us a little bit about our best friends, China. We know that our president was in China just last week. What can we look forward to next year when it comes to South Africa's relations with China?
Well, there's no doubt that we've moved a lot closer to China since the advent of the Jacob Zuma presidency. And it looks as though we continue to move closer to China. China fills a void, in a sense, in the South African economic context if we are unable to attract sufficient Western capital into South Africa for all the reasons that we've spoken about. Well, it's often argued that China will come to our rescue. China will be the ones to develop new platinum mines in South Africa when Western mining companies decide to move elsewhere. China will be the one to invest in our infrastructure in South Africa when others perhaps are reluctant to. The deals might be better from China. So on the business side, South Africa certainly has moved closer to China. I think also from an ANC point of view, ideologically, China is a very attractive model for the ANC. The mix of politics, government, the Chinese Communist Party, and state-owned enterprises, and the private sector in China is indeed an interesting model, and I think there are many within the ANC in South Africa who would love to follow that model here in this country. So there's an ideological paradigm, there's a business paradigm that brings the two countries together, and it does look as though we're going to see closer cooperation here across the board over the course of the next year or so. Look, China themselves are undergoing a dramatic economic change within their own country. Their own growth rates are down to the mid 7.5% or so GDP growth rate from the average 10% plus growth rate of the 2000 to 2010 period. So the Chinese economy also is starting to slow, and questions will have to be asked over the course of the next few years as to whether China will continue to invest outside of the country and develop infrastructure outside of China globally and in Africa to the same degree that they have over the course of the last decade. And I think the Chinese economy will mutate and shift. What's important for China is to get their own people to spend more money on consumption-led growth within China. They've almost got too much productive capacity in China, and they've got to purchase and sell their own domestic goods in their country to roll over that economy into the future. This means that they may take a little bit of a back seat outside of their own home country, concentrating more on domestic production and consumption. And I think therefore we may see China lessen their footprint in the African continent moderately over the course of the next year, but certainly use South Africa as a very developed economy on the continent to be a catalyst for further Chinese expansion, certainly here. Maybe it's South Africa's turn for China over the course of the next year or two, and maybe they will take a little back seat in other parts of Africa as a result.